There's certain things too now. There was a shocking story about you, and I was like, there's no way this is true.
Yeah.
When they said you were in Vegas and you beat some guy bloody and you did something to some female.
Yeah.
And they said they
had dispatched up to one of the rooms.
The radio.
I got told to go up to her room to help some girl get down to the casino because she was scared. She ends up being all bloody and everything.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, it was lovely. So I'm her supervisor, then I had to call my boss, and I was like, we got a situation, because, like, half of her face was, like, blown out, pretty much. Come to find out, she was with a certain rapper who had assaulted her.
Was his first name Lil?
No.
That'll narrow it down.
His first name was Kendrick.
Lamar?
Yeah.
female.
Yeah.
And they said they had evidence and all of this. And then I never heard anything about it again.
Yeah, because it's foolishness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a real issue. And to be putting a person name that stands for someone way more better, that's been raised way more better.
On the song Opposite Attract, is that about a recent relationship you went through? Or?
We hurt people that love us, love people that hurt us, hurt people that love us, love people. I'm inspired, so get inspired. And so he said, why you gotta be so kind-hearted? Why you couldn't be a kind artist? Why you treating my mama like she your mama too? Why you making promises that you'll forever do? Whatever just to make me happy, wanting us to have a family. These are exactly the reasons why I cheat on you. Sometimes we hurt people that love us and love people that hurt us. And so she said, why you gotta be so mean to me? Why you don't know what you mean to me? Why I feel I'm the last option after your homies? Why you always gotta know that how I never let you go? Even though you get violent and put your hands on me. Sometimes people that love us and love
person name that stands for someone way more better, that's been raised way more better than that. That's not cool. It's people out there that really get abused, and it's women.
Opposite Attract, is that about a recent relationship you went through, or?
No, that's actually about shit. Everybody's recent relationship they went through. All my homeboy shit. I mean, I always heard stories. I mean, just in general, from growing up. You know what I mean, about my uncles and cousins. They be hitting on their females, and the female, I pop up in the house, and the female will be back all up on them, loving them, and all this stuff. Just experience. I mean, from other people's experiences, and it always tripped me out. How can a woman be attracted to somebody that abuses her, that treats her like shit? I mean, that shit still goes on today. I see it even on my generation, and it always tripped me out. You know what I mean? I just felt like that should be expressed on the motherfucking song.
Despite Kendrick's claims that he was raised far better than to be the type of man who would lay his hands on a woman, his earlier interviews indicate otherwise, when he admits that all of his friends and even uncles commit domestic abuse. In fact, he seems to suggest it was virtually all the men in his life. He was even taught by the women in his life that this was a crime that would be forgiven. And we will see at the end of the video series that one indication of somebody lying is when their history may exhibit a different reality than who they claim themselves to be. But first, let's pick up where we left off. To illustrate my point, let's examine FD Signifier, a prominent content creator tied to this beef and known for his viral video on the subject titled I'm What the Culture Feelin'. FD Signifier embodies the typical Drake hater and Kendrick fan, a progressive artsy activist who views anyone with a different viewpoint or taste in rap music or life in general as problematic, sexist, racist, or worse. If that seems like an unfair characterization, I'll let him demonstrate it himself.
If Drake is your favorite rapper, you're probably a loser. Or at least like the most boring person that any of your friends know. And also I can shade and underage girls and just like weirdo shit, just keep it real. That's your favorite rapper. Not like you like some Drake song, not like he goes off in the club, but if you like connect with Drake, if he inspires you, you probably suck. I'm just saying, this is your favorite music, your favorite? You probably think Transformers is like an amazing movie. You probably think vanilla ice cream is spicy. And this is even just a racial thing. Like that's Drake's white fans and his black fans, his male fans and his female fans, and everyone in between. I'm sorry, Drake is vapid. You can like Drake, but to love Drake is to hate goodness.
His commentary demonstrates how much bigger this situation is than a simple rap feud. This is a college-educated man with a family and children casually accusing people of pedophilia just for Drake being their favorite artist to an audience of millions, primarily based on his hatred for Drake. Yet these are the individuals who hold influence over the narratives. Unfortunately, because these dishonest people have the largest platforms, the audience tends to follow their lead.
FD Signifier also claims confidently and without evidence that Drake fans are uniquely white, as well as shallow, vapid frontrunners, going as far as labeling them the Trump voters of hip-hop, a subtle implication they're also racist, and this is his big piece of evidence for that.
The black women who once championed and insulated Drake from the purest hip-hop fans were now being thrown to the wayside for obnoxious white superfans who would tangle in Drake's every word and live vicariously through him. Drake fans are the types of fan that want to attach themselves to whoever is on top. They're like the type of people that are Cowboys fans, but they live in like Boston. They relish the fact that Drake has no shame or accountability to hip-hop culture or women or anyone. Drake fans are basically the Trump voters of hip-hop. And like if you go to Drake's Reddit page, that's not that wild of a statement. And this isn't explicitly just the whiteness of his fans, although that is a big part of it. Black people are only 13% of the population. It's just mathematically impossible to be a rap megastar and not have a huge white following.
It's hard not to feel like Kendrick attracts the dumbest fake smart people on the internet with moments like this. FD, how do you think Kendrick became a megastar, bud? Of course, per usual, he has special rules for Drake. His fans are surely a problem, and he's only popular, mathematically speaking, because of these white fans. And even though that's the case for most rappers, when they're Drake fans, they get all racist and Trumpy. He also has double standards for tough Drake, despite breaking down the facade of most rappers, analogizing their rap personas to WWE stars, and in the term kayfabe, describing those stars' commitment to sticking to their character's storyline and personality, even off-screen. Yet when Drake does it, in his opinion, it's a problem, and even though he admits it was the case with famous rappers like Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, and another I don't think he mentioned, but Tupac is a great example. In fact, for all the hate Kendrick has for Drake's accents and personality changes, apparently his idol was very similar.
I just always remember that I was very aware of the fact that when you see Tupac approaching you, that one of my first thoughts would be, I wonder how he's gonna act today. Because he had these different, to the extreme personalities where one day he'd be, intelligent, insightful, and, another day he might be militant, another day he might be feeling thuggish, and another day he might be the party guy or whatever, just in a hype mood, So I would just be like looking at him like, when he gets ready to start talking, like, what do you get? And
Bronx and boom, they just did a Sprite commercial off the bridge and KRS. Why is it not hip hop when I do it? Well, I mean, goddamn. Why is it suddenly a nigga tripping when I do it?
Drake's sitting somewhere like, this motherfucker spit. Alright, let's get back to FD Signifier's goofy ass. And can we just take a moment to appreciate how broken he has to be to get offended by someone pointing out bigotry as an issue? Not only an issue, but you think it's racist to not accept someone else's racism. This is the guy with probably the second most popular video about the beef. And he's just openly racist, doesn't hide it, says white people are inherently a problem. So yes, the original commenter was right. We have a deeply rooted racism problem in hip-hop. Let's not pretend people didn't immediately blame Drake's whiteness or Jewishness for him suing. Acting like a black man suing a label headed entirely by white execs, at least from a picture that circulated online of UMG, because he believes they utilize bots to help disparage him as a pedophile while he's in the middle of a contract negotiation. Her reason for attacking DJ Vlad, who I'm not even a fan of for the record, was that he said the mix should be a little better on Not Like Us. That's how little it takes to trigger the extreme racism of the Kendrick fan base, or if she's not a part of his fan base, she would definitely fit in like a glove. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. She's also considering whiteness to be an automatic disqualifier from having a mind worth respecting, and she's a Princeton professor, which shows how widely this level of anti-white rhetoric is accepted on most levels of society now. And I mean, think about it. Kendrick got a Pulitzer Prize on an album where he promoted an ideology that expresses a rapture where the end result is the enslavement of anyone that isn't Black, Latino, or Native American. And they probably look at that as a positive feature more than a bug. I'm sure he takes a similar stance to her. We made this culture, so keep your white opinion to yourself. Even if you've been working in the industry for decades and like the music, you disagree with me, so shut the fuck up, colonizer. Or one of his other pre-programmed responses will probably be something along the lines of black people can't be racist against white people, and if you aren't someone that follows politics at all, there's a big push to redefine racism by the FDs of the world, one that conveniently makes it impossible for white people to be the victims of racism. because they only consider something racist if there's a structural or systemic foundation behind the act, and since they feel black people aren't the ones in control of the system, they can't commit racist acts. Again, how convenient, but to address this issue without demonizing the whole group, I am sympathetic for wanting to differentiate the racism that is foundationally oppressive towards a certain group from some rich white woman being called a Karen. They're obviously not the same thing, but if you only remind people of that as a way to downplay the bigotry they face and just pretend like you're a stickler for the correct word use, when the reality is you're getting off to attacking someone racially, fuck off. No one is buying the act. You're just a racist with an ideology popular enough to be allowed to get away with it. It's not complicated. They always lack the self-awareness to realize this, but they're behaving exactly like the all lives matter people that they and most people hate. By they, I don't mean black people. I'm talking specifically about the people that think like this. They just have enough community support and people in high places that don't punish this behavior that they can get away with thinking it's way different when they deflect from the issue at hand because they're uncomfortable hearing a race they dislike complaining and want to make it about them or discredit the other person by using cheap tricks. The whole claim that Drake's fans are racist is the most poorly disguised projection you'll ever see. He indirectly says the Drake fans' whiteness isn't their only problem, de facto equating them being white as inherently problematic. And I'd normally assume those comments were Freudian slips, but I think in his case he's just so unashamed of it that he's willing to say the quiet part out loud. Because like all racists, they feel justified in it, so they can't fathom that they may be the problem. And just a little wake-up call for anyone who has a distaste or hatred for an entire ethnic group. I promise it's not them that's the problem, it's you. You're provoking the shit by bringing your past and biases into the interactions and tainting them with it. The sad truth is if FD's signifier was white, he'd be the Richard Spencer of the alternative universe. However, I have to just ask, when has a guest at your house ever spoken to like this? Just say what you really mean. You want white people to be second-class citizens that are there to be seen, if that, but definitely not heard. And if you have a problem with it, you're a racist and need to shut the fuck up. FD is the type of guy that's so deeply brainwashed by his bullshit politics that he saw that and said, wow, white people are so fucked up. And his hate for Drake and probably most things that are popular are stemming from the fact that he's the stereotypical nerd or hipster that grew up hating the cool kids out loud but secretly wished he was hanging out with them, and now makes his whole identity to hate on everything that represents that part of society where he wasn't once welcomed. Unsurprisingly to me, as growing up, those were always the types of people that hated Drake, or the overcompensating alpha males that couldn't stand a rapper singing. And I'm not basing that all off of his appearance or politics either. He's basically said as much on his breakdowns explaining why he identified with Kanye during his Backpack era. We obviously don't have any demographic statistics on the racial breakdown of Kendrick and Drake's fans, but I'll just say, growing up in a super diverse city, I can say with confidence that people of all ethnicities like Drake. If anything, I've had more black friends in my life than white friends that love Drake. I think the reality is that people like him don't interact with the people that they talk about, and they just start to lump all of these groups that they dislike together. He knows he hates Drake fans, he knows he hates Trump fans, let me put them together. And for what it's worth, those hypermasculine bros in my life have never really been the type that like Drake. They'll probably listen to anything before him because of his reputation as being the softie of rap. Maybe the only unification really is a distaste for people that are Kendrick fans that would write a think piece about a lack of LGBT representation on the Monday Night Football broadcast. But if we do want to make race a big deal and decide who has the blacker or whiter fan base, maybe the closest thing we've seen to polling or numbers on the subject was Complex releasing data about all of the NBA players they polled, asking who their favorite of the big three, and Kendrick, of course, ended up coming in last place behind J. Cole and Drake. There was also a hilarious Reddit post where there's a black guy who is in the Kendrick Lamar community and talks about his frustration that everybody thinks Kendrick's fan base is white, and everybody assures him that's not true, but ironically everybody who did so was white. Now, to give an example of the dishonesty in his coverage, in his Kendrick and Drake video, revealingly, there's a moment where he's talking about Drake's prior paternity claims, stating they provided some evidence, admittedly by him, non-conclusive evidence, but still something to take in, that they may bring reason to believe Kendrick's accusations that Drake's fathering more children than the public knows, and more importantly, neglecting these alleged kids. However, during his video essay, you'll see that he either lacked any concern for research or failed to do a good job of thorough research.
Letter to an alleged second child of Drake, who Kendrick's camp claims they fully know exists, but no proof has been found. And I'll stop there for now because for obvious reasons that I don't want to get too far into that. But he does imply that Drake has multiple other children. And with a little Googling, you will find stories of paternity tests and lawsuits and court cases around Drake from the previous decade regarding illegitimate children. Lastly,
most people that disparage Drake will bring up a reported $350,000 lawsuit settled for SA, but what they don't know or conveniently leave out, I'll let you decide, is the full story of the woman who made this allegation. Laquana Morris, also known as Layla Lace, had a sexual encounter with Drake in 2017, and before accusing Drake of SA, she actually claimed to be pregnant with Drake's child, going public with her accusations on both Instagram and in a radio interview. However, according to Drake's attorneys, she refused to take a paternity test to validate her claims, and 8 months after her claims to be pregnant, there was no baby to be heard of or on the way, for that matter. After her failure to take the test, Drake naturally declined her request for money, according to his attorneys, so she went to police in the UK to try to press criminal charges against Drake for SA, which police rejected due to a lack of evidence, with an email posted in the Yahoo story that she received from UK investigators. However, someone was successful in the courts, but it was Drake successfully suing her civilly. Drake's attorney successfully argued that her accusations were meant to damage his reputation with false claims that were made with malice to obtain a payday, despite the fact that Drake won his lawsuit against her, with the report saying, according to court records, the lawsuit was settled and both parties signed the following order. Injunctive relief is granted in favor of plaintiff Aubrey Drake Graham and against defendant Laquana Morris. Morris is hereby prohibited and enjoined from a republishing, distributing, and otherwise disseminating her April 17, 2017 Instagram post making any statements alleging or insinuating that Drake assaulted her, making any statements alleging or insinuating that Graham got her pregnant and then abandoned her, and or making any statements at all that are defamatory or disparaging of Graham. Despite this fact, Yahoo still reported her claims that Drake was actually the one who was guilty and paid her off to keep quiet. The Yahoo article reported that the woman said that during the police investigation, her lawyer began negotiations with Drake's attorney. She told Yahoo that Drake's team begged that we didn't file a lawsuit and suggested that we wait until Drake is done with his criminal case to discuss mediation. He also offered to sign a tolling agreement, so we did. What's a tolling agreement, you're probably asking? The purpose is to sign a tolling agreement to have the accused, in this case Drake, agreed to waive the statute of limitations on a crime she claims took place the year prior, in February 2017. So why would she be worried about that in a country that doesn't have a statute of limitations on SA? In order to allow them more time to settle the case? Exactly. Makes no sense that it would be of concern, and starts to bring into question the validity of her claims that Drake paid her $350,000 to stay silent. Considering it didn't take getting far into her story for me to find the first hole in her claims. To make matters even worse for those who want to believe her story, her own lawyer agreed to put out the statement that named Aubrey as the winner of his lawsuit against her. But that statement I just read released angered Laquana Morris. She claimed her lawyer didn't divulge this information, that she would be painted as the bad guy essentially, so she got upset and continued her attacks on Drake, and even signed a petition to have her lawyer investigated and punished by the New York Attorney Grievance Committee. For the record, I also looked into her complaint about her attorney, and there's no public records of the lawyer she accused of improper representation being punished, not to mention image leaked where she's messaging a friend on Instagram admitting to extorting Drake. But of course she denies that, and of course it goes unmentioned in the Yahoo article as well. It appears that the only evidence that they had before publishing the story was a check that she received for $75,000, with her stating that her lawyers received $50,000 as well. But considering how much more evidence there is that she's lying about the case and attempting to commit extortion, it's pretty crazy that they were willing to publish the story based on that as if it was true. There were only 2 other stories that really had much coverage online, if that, but one was involved with a woman named Shertkevia Mirik, who accused Drake of fathering her child, but also refused to take a paternity test. The case went nowhere, and the main piece of evidence seemed to just be that her baby resembled Drake's baby photos. In either case, no evidence emerged of any child support or settlement payments. And one more case that Drake's critics point to involves a woman who claimed her 2-year-old was Drake's child. The story received minimal coverage, making it difficult to verify or refute, but I did find it a bit odd that someone seeking child support from a millionaire would wait 2 years to do so, but I'll let you be the judge of that. Hopefully that glimpse gives you an idea of just how bad the media coverage was, so we can move on to Kendrick now. I want to ask if you are enjoying this content to please subscribe or follow me, and there will be a part 2 of this. All right, before the media section, I was able to break down how dishonest or hypocritical a lot of Kendrick's narratives were regarding Drake's character. I want to dig into what I think the real motivation could be. I think I can pinpoint the exact moment where Drake and Kendrick's relationship soured, with specific lyrics in the Control verse that probably offended Drake that most people don't understand. But before getting into the specific details about their history, I want to take a step back to analyze their personality and philosophical differences that created the beef beyond what we will see from that origin story. To do so, it can be helpful to look at a similar yet unrelated story that mirrors a lot of these same philosophical differences referenced here. So we're going to analyze the movie The Prestige. Stick with me for a second and pay attention, because it's going to serve a greater point about Kendrick's real motivation as opposed to the fake virtuous defense of the culture narrative used to excuse his needless attack. The 2006 film by Christopher Nolan follows 2 rival magicians who sacrifice everything to master their craft. Both men enter the film carrying huge secrets about their identity. Jackman conceals his wealthy background to protect his family's reputation, while Bale uses a secret twin brother to perform tricks. At the film's start, they are friends seeking greatness under the tutelage of an elderly magician. However, Christian Bale's character grows frustrated by the lack of creativity from his boss, unwilling to perform daring stunts, paralleling Kendrick's criticism of a lack of competitive spark in rap that fueled the Control verse. In his pursuit of excellence, Bale uses a dangerous rope-tying technique on Jackman's wife, who is the one who typically escapes the knots while submerged in a water tank, but she fails with the knot tied by Bale.
If you would tie her wrists, bind her feet around the ankle. Are either of you 2 gentlemen sailors? No. I'm sure you can both tie a strong knot. No. Julia!
The death of Jackman's wife ignites the rivalry that the film revolves around. Jackman then seeks to get revenge for her death by shooting Bale during a risky bullet catch trick. However, Bale's twin brother, in disguise, thwarts the homicide attempt, shoving Jackman as he fires the gun at Bale. Bale eventually returns to the stage after his hand has healed from the bullet that Jackman fired at him, performing an impressive trick that Jackman's character deemed the best he's ever seen. which shows him seemingly teleporting across the stage in the blink of an eye. And this trick ignites an obsession by Jackman to uncover the secret, unaware the twin brother is what Bale is using to pull off the trick. But since he can't figure out a way to replicate the trick, he decides to use a body double, a drunk man they find who resembles him, so he's able to easily steal the trick and become more popular than Bale, because despite doing the same trick, he is more impressive in terms of showmanship, essentially dressing up the trick in a more visually stunning way to captivate the audience. This resembles the dynamic between Kendrick Lamar and Drake, as both Jackman and Drake have more audience-friendly performances, and of course Bale and Kendrick are angry because they feel an inferior artist is getting unwarranted attention. Because of this envy, Bale decides to ambush Jackman and show who the real magician is, which he does with the help of Jackman's assistant, Scarlett Johansson, who leads him backstage to sabotage the trick. Her betrayal was the result of anger with Jackman, who actually sent her to work for Bale as a double agent in hopes of being able to discover the secret to his trick. Jackman realizes this, so he confronts and threatens Scarlett Johansson, but unfortunately for him, she and Bale are 2 steps ahead, and she gives him Bale's diary of tricks, which is what Jackman was obsessed with throughout the movie because he was under the impression that he would be able to steal the trick without using a body double if he had the diary of the tricks that Bale used, but he was unaware of the twin brother of Bale being the actual reason he can teleport across the stage. However, Bale's clever manipulation backfires because Jackman's character goes to America to meet Nikola Tesla as Bale had hoped by planting the idea that Tesla is how he pulls off the trick in the fake diary, essentially thinking it will be nothing but a wild goose chase for Jackman. But when Jackman shows up to Tesla's headquarters, Tesla has actually developed a machine that allows Jackman to duplicate himself with an exact clone, which eliminates his need for a body double, which was a big problem for him because that double is the one who worked with Scarlett Johansson to betray Jackman and allow him to be exposed in front of the audience by Bale.
You must be curious to see what so much money has brought you, Mr. Angelo. It's fitting you should be here for maiden voyage. Your head.
You might want to stand back.
We're sorry to see you go, Mr. Angier.
Jackman returns to England with the cloning machine in a more spectacular act than before. Once again, Bale becomes consumed by jealousy and attempts to uncover the secret by going backstage again. And despite the fact that he has built a successful career after spending years in poverty, it's not enough. He needs to be number one. Much like we will see shortly, Kendrick has a similar need to be recognized as number one. This time, however, Jackman anticipates Bale's attempt to reveal his secret, and he uses his curiosity against him to frame him for murder. Because when Bale goes backstage, he discovers Jackman submerged in a tank under the stage, eventually drowning to death and leading to the arrest of Bale, who is accused of rigging the equipment that caused Jackman to die. Of course, Jackman isn't actually dead. It was his clone that drowns under the stage, and it was he himself who sabotaged the trick in order to get Bale arrested for the fake murder. Jackman even goes into hiding to convince the police he's really been murdered by Bale. Before being sentenced to death for the murder of Jackman, his twin brother visits him in the disguise of the director. And I haven't explained this yet, but the brother who's about to die is far more obsessed with the status of being the number one magician, and so he admits to his twin brother, who is the one more in love with the family than magic, that it was his need for status that caused his forthcoming hanging. But it's not only his life ruined by this obsession, it also is the cause of his wife's suicide because she suffers due to the distress of sensing that her husband is hiding something from her.
Olivia means nothing.
Olivia!
I need an assistant. I can't not have an assistant.
I'll tell her I know what
You tell her what?
I know what you really are, Alfred. I know.
Sarah, you can't talk like this. Sarah, shut up. Sarah, shut up! I don't want to hear it anymore. You can't talk like this.
You can't believe it anymore because I know, Alfred. I know what you really are, Alfred. I can't live
Because
like
when the two brothers go back and forth between magician and the one who's in disguise as the manager of the magician, she notices that the brother more obsessed with magic doesn't genuinely mean it when he tells her he loves her, because he's actually in love with the assistant played by Scarlett Johansson. But just before her suicide, she makes one last attempt to get to the truth and confronts him, but being a true magician, he never reveals his secret.
I want you to be honest with me. No tricks. No lies. No secrets. Do you love me?
Not today. No.
The movie ends with Bale's twin enacting revenge for his dead brother, shooting Jackman before having a brief but really profound discussion about their motivations and sacrifices, with Bale's motivation mirroring Kendrick's and Drake and Jackman's mirroring each other.
I've made sacrifices. Yes. It takes nothing to steal another man's work. It takes everything. No, wait,
It took courage. It took courage to climb into that machine every night, not knowing if I'd be the man in the box or in the prestige. Do you want to see what it cost me?
This moment reflects Kendrick questioning Drake's authenticity to rap because he didn't grow up in a hood like Compton, as well as his disdain for Drake having ghostwriters. In fact, he can't even understand why Jackman would spend a fortune and do so many immoral things to replicate his trick, but Jackman is bewildered by this notion, explaining to Christian Bale's character what his real motivation was all along.
Really terrible things, Robert. And all for nothing.
You never understood why we did this. The audience knows the truth. The world is simple, miserable, solid all the way through. But if you could fool them, even for a second, then you could make them wonder. And you got to see something very special. It was the look on their faces.
While you may see the parallels I mentioned, the important question is, why does this matter? I believe both Bale and Kendrick share the same oversight. They fail to realize the audience knows the truth. Kendrick's depiction of Drake as an outsider and a Canadian posing as a tough rapper isn't the big reveal that Kendrick thinks it is. Drake fans know who he really is, but they remain unmoved by Kendrick's thesis, possibly because they're too afraid to admit they were fooled, or maybe they've just been paying close attention.
Are you watching closely?
Unlike Kendrick, who teased Drake for being feminine and switching personalities all the time, and yep, we got to do it again. Sorry, I love Tupac, but
be like them, because they seem to get the girls, and they call girls the B word, you know, and they smack and beat, and they're getting girls, and I'm going, peace, and I think you're beautiful, and they're going to me, well, I like him because he's masculine. I'm masculine. I mean. And with the guys, I'm trying, and like yesterday he was cursing, and I was like, don't curse. And he got mad at me because I told him not to curse.
I think looking at somebody like Bale's character in this movie does a great job at explaining the type of mentality that Kendrick had versus Drake. One who's a little bit more obsessive about the artistic integrity of their performance, and the other that is more concerned with putting on a great performance for his audience. And because of their different focuses and specialties, they've gotten success in different fields. For example, Kendrick always wins the Grammy. Drake is always the highest selling artist. And both artists seem to have a level of disgust for the way that the other goes about their business. Drake has mocked artists that look like they're attempting to win a Grammy, saying it looks forced, and Kendrick mocks Drake for only pacifying his audience and giving them nothing to believe in. Despite the pride Kendrick and Bale show in their sacrifice, they fail to remember that their choices lead to the damage that their families face. It causes Bale to lose his wife when she takes it, and Kendrick's family will have to live their lives with the allegations from Family Matters hanging over their heads. Both men find it easier to blame their rival than look in the mirror, with Kendrick even claiming Drake put his family's life at risk by offering money for dirt on him, seemingly forgetting that he was the one who initiated the battle, and also feigning ignorance that Drake did the same thing with Pusha T, which I find unbelievable considering Kendrick was clearly studying Drake's history well enough to know that. I don't think he truly felt his family was at risk. It was just another attempt to demonize Drake and to manipulate the audience, as he did on 616 in LA, claiming Drake's attempts at finding dirt were useless because he lives such a peaceful life, which I feel is demonstrably disingenuous and just creates more doubt in his words having any validity, considering his last album was full of references about how his lies to his fiancée about his sex addiction and infidelity led to him finding her breaking down in the kitchen, even eventually confessing to his audience that by the time they hear this music, she will be gone. Now that we've discussed a little bit of the philosophical differences that differentiate Kendrick and Drake, I want to talk about what happened between them in real life that led to this beef. Many of Drake's critics like to point to a time when Lil Wayne famously told a reporter that he told Drake, "Stick to being Canadian." It wasn't said by Lil Wayne to try to belittle Drake or say he's some softie. Wayne instead wanted him to resist the peer pressure of rapping like Wayne, because that would remove what made Drake special, his more relatable lyrics. He was also advising Drake to do this because he felt Drake had an advantage. Being a nice kid from Canada, Wayne knew Drake had something he never would have. A family-friendly image and persona that would allow him to reach heights even Wayne couldn't. This wasn't lost on Drake's team either, so the message clearly got through, with his manager telling the New York Times early in Drake's career that his past as an actor is attractive to corporate America because it made him less of a brand risk than a more stereotypical rapper. Although Drake didn't completely ignore Wayne's advice, it's fair to point out that he did become far more similar to Lil Wayne lyrically today than he was perceived as being during his come-up. However, I think this shift in his persona can be understood using an anecdote that also involves Kendrick Lamar, and to make it even more relevant, it could explain some of the tension that precipitated the war. Before Kendrick, DMX was Drake's biggest hater. I bring this up because DMX essentially serves as an archetype for all the old heads and OGs that didn't like Drake. I think it was odd for them to see the face of rap as a light-skinned dude raised by a Jewish white woman in Canada that spoke like this.
Formed OVO, and I've never been the guy that was like just hanging around for the sake of.
What about Drake? You like Drake?
No.
My man.
He didn't even say a little bit. He didn't even say halfway.
That's my guy right there.
No.
That's why X is necessary in the game right there.
Man. Now, why don't you like Drake? I don't like anything about Drake. I don't like his voice. I don't like what he talks about. I don't.
See, I be trying to tell these face.
Personally, I think moments like DMX rant against Drake are what influenced him to become more resentful and aggressive in his lyrics. Although, for the record, Drake actually reached out to DMX and left him so impressed that DMX talked about their conversation in a later interview.
Didn't like this dude for all the wrong reasons. He man enough to reach out and make that call. I was like, homie, hats off, man. That was a real move. It took a man. You are feeling this way. Love you, son. I was like, damn, yo, I appreciate it. So, yeah, to Drake.
Coincidentally, Kendrick told a story during an interview where he heard all of the guys in TDE laughing hysterically, and when he went to find out what was going on, he found them playing this DMX clip disparaging Drake. And he was still laughing pretty hard at the expense of Drake when he was reflecting on it with the interviewer. If Drake did see this, it could explain the lack of patience he had for Kendrick's control verse when questioned about it during the promo run for his album Nothing Was the Same.
You wouldn't do it for sport, ever?
Like just to call someone out?
No, like after Kendrick's thing, you wouldn't. I noticed you didn't really get into that too much. So
I just I don't know. It just wasn't real to me. It's like I saw him after that, and it was just like love. So it's like, was that real or was that just like for the people? You know what I mean?
To bring it all together, it was also on this album where I think he starts to provide some insight into his mindset one where he felt tired of being the bigger man and humbly appreciating his place in hip-hop, while ignoring all the hate he received for being the soft-singing rapper that he did often early in his career.
Fuck all that happy to be here shit that y'all want me on. I'm the big homie, they still be trying little bro me, dog. Like I should fall in line. Like I should alert niggas when I'm about to drop something crazy and not say I'm the greatest of my generation. Like I should be dressing different. Like I should be less aggressive and pessimistic.
Also noteworthy, there are some bars that definitely seem like they could be referring to Kendrick in a prior verse when he says,
overly focused is far from the time to rest now. Debates growing about who they think is the best now. Took a while, got the jokers out of the deck now. I'm holding all the cards and niggas wanna play chess now. I hear you talking, say it twice so I know you meant it. Fuck it, I don't even tend it, they should know who's in it. I'm authentic, real name, no gimmicks, no game, no scrimmage. I ain't playing with you niggas at all.
If you're not following, Drake shared with Elliot Wilson his feeling about the Control verse when he said,
and that verse was, he's giving people like moments, you know, like that verse was a moment to talk about. Are you listening to it now at this point in time? Okay. And then it was real cool for like, you know, a couple weeks. But like, if I asked you, for example, like, how does that verse start?
No, do you remember?
No, and like, now mind you, it'll go on and Complex and Rap Radar, give it like verse of the millennium and all that shit or whatever.
Drake later ended up softening the criticism a little bit.
And I think that Kendrick has like the utmost potential, man. Like, you know, I see Kendrick tomorrow, I'm gonna dap him. I didn't feel a way about that verse. I get it. I get the moment. Like, you know, he's a good guy. And like, I know that verse had no malice behind it because I saw him 5 days later at the VMAs and it was all love. So it's like, he didn't come on there on some wild, like, yeah, I'm in New York, fuck everybody, don't look at me. Like,
I'm the king.
So it was one of those things, it's like, I almost wish he had come in there on that shit because I kind of lost like a little respect for the sentiment of the verse. If it's really fuck everybody, then it needs to be fuck everybody. It just can't be halfway for the sake of the people. But you know what I'm saying? Like, for real, that's just how I feel. I still like, when it comes to competition, I'm more worried about consistency. I'm more worried about bodies of work.
I believe if you're looking for one moment, it was this pivotal moment in Drake and Kendrick's history that sparked the feud. Reflect on Kendrick's statement in Euphoria asserting that his music isn't about critics, gimmicks, or competition for greatness. The use of the term gimmick was Kendrick's choice there, in my opinion, because that's how Drake framed the Control verse, and he takes his art very seriously, so it attacked him at his core identity. However, Drake and J. Cole, who also accused Kendrick of attention-seeking, have evidence to support their claims. Kendrick's tour had him dressed as Jesus, he did a video featuring dead celebrities in The Heart Part 5, and he name-dropped all of his biggest competitors on Control. This is why ultimately I can't believe this narrative that Kendrick only did this for the culture or to protect the innocent. I think ultimately it was about the fact that Drake disrespected him as an artist, but he's also not the victim because what people conveniently forget is he was the one who disrespected Drake's art first, but apparently only Kendrick is allowed to be upset about this.
Shots being great debates all the time about who's the best MC. Kendrick, Jigga, and Nas, Eminem, Andre 3000, the rest of y'all new niggas, just new niggas. Don't get involved. And
those previous lines by Kendrick when he's talking about being in the GOAT debate with a lot of the legends he mentioned are why that reaction I just played from Drake starts to make sense. It doesn't make sense just because he said he was going to kill them and he's trying to murder them. I mean, every rapper has said something along those lines for the most part, especially lyricists like Kendrick or Drake, Eminem, J. Cole, things like that. Those guys say that stuff all the time, right? But I differentiate that with his lines about the GOAT debate because that's not even Kendrick saying, I'm the best rapper of all time, I'm the GOAT. He's comparing himself to 5 other rappers that he thinks are also in the debate. He's also saying these other guys that take pride in their work are not on that level. So I think any real rapper that actually takes pride in their work and is actually confident is going to feel a way about it. And if you look at the actual reactions, not just the narrative, only Drake got mad, when in reality, for example, there was a story about Jay Electronica getting upset about the Control verse. Big Crit and Lupe Fiasco put out responses. J. Cole is another guy you can add to the list that wasn't happy. He even said he had to call Kendrick up personally to make sure there wasn't any issues with them.
I had to have a conversation with him. So I just had to find out for myself, like, yo, what? You came at me, dog? What's that?
And Kendrick did explain on many occasions that his relationship with J. Cole did not change as a result of that verse.
Specifically, where are you at, like, with the J. Cole? Specifically, where are you at with the Drake, or so on and so forth?
I respect their music, for sure. I respect them as individuals and creators.
Although now history has been rewritten to suggest that Drake was the only one that was upset, does this sound like somebody who didn't take the verse personally at all?
If a nigga won't proud my triggers on auto, I'll make sure that nobody misses. So Cole is really letting Kendrick know that if he wants to make this thing real, if he wants to take it there, that he's ready for war. The last line where he states that he's going to make sure that nobody misses him appears to be a direct response to Kendrick's verse.
Personally, I don't think so, but many will argue that rap is like basketball and create an analogy where the control verse is like trash talking on the court. However, a better analogy would be comparing it to how LeBron would feel hypothetically if Kobe told him he would never be in the GOAT discussion with he and MJ. He's just a new guy. I think LeBron would have reacted exactly like Drake did, upset that somebody tried to downplay them. And that's exactly how Kendrick also reacted when he felt like Drake accused him of chasing a moment when he felt he was trying to invigorate the competitive spirit within all the rappers of his generation. I think if anyone's trying to take an unbiased look at this whole situation, nobody really reacted in a way that's so egregious that they should be considered the bad guy in this. Kendrick had a right to flaunt his opinion of his skill level, Drake had to be upset when he downplayed his, and Kendrick also had a right to be upset when Drake responded to the control verse the way he did. I really just wanted to cover this to explain that I don't buy that Kendrick was really attempting to protect the culture or felt that Drake was such a terrible guy that he had to be the one to kill him to save hip-hop. If you disagree, I think Kendrick confirms my theory that the good guy saving rap was just a tactic to manipulate the audience with a disingenuous narrative. During the 616 in LA song when he says, "God, my confession is yours, but who am I if I don't go to war? There's opportunity when living with loss. I discover myself when I fall short." In this moment, he contemplates if he is doing the right thing. He's not praising God, he's confessing. He feels shame and doubt, not some righteous indignation. I believe this signals he plans on going low, which we saw would come to fruition, and that he doesn't feel confident it's the morally right thing to do, but he's willing to risk it and lose his moral compass to help him jump planets immortalized, which he later says, which many feel was his way of saying this beef could push him into a new stratosphere. And in my opinion, he confirmed this theory on the Reincarnated track on GNX, rapping,
Tell me every deed that you done and what you do it for. I kept 100 institutions paid. Okay, tell me more. I put 100 hoods on one stage. Okay, tell me more. I'm trying to push peace in LA. But you love war. No, I don't. Oh, yes, you do. Okay, then tell me the truth. Every individual is only a version of you. How can they forgive when there's no forgiveness in your heart?
This confirms that, one, he loves war or conflict as much as he tried to imply in other moments that it was just supposed to be a fun exhibition between he and Drake, but also that he harbors resentment and a difficulty with forgiveness, indicating it's not just a cultural defense that motivated him or protection of the alleged innocent victims of Drake, but instead his inability to forgive him for the control criticism, despite Drake having made several attempts to squash their beef, most famously recruiting him to join Cole on first-person shooter mode. He further validates this theory when he admits to being confused when Drake and Kanye reconciled on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, realizing he needed more healing to be able to do so. During his interview with SZA for Harper's Bazaar, before the album was released, he talks to her about how he has to leave what he does on the stage there and not take it back to him in his real life. He implies it's because he's a perfectionist, but I also believe it's because he isn't always proud of the things he says in his music. For example, the way he mocks Drake's father being absent when that's something he pities when his friends went through it. He uses God as the voice that can finally look past his words and into his heart as a way to confess to the audience as well as himself that he has the devil inside of him in a sense, and he needs to expel him to be able to forgive and live in a more consistent life where the alter ego of Kendrick Lamar isn't needed as a separation from Kendrick Duckworth.
Absol called me, nigga. It's like, nigga, 5:30 in the morning. It's a FaceTime call. I pick up, it was Dot, bro. Nigga just looking at the camera. Bro, look, I swear to God, bro. The nigga was just looking at the camera and hung up.
He just needed that energy. He was channeling his inner daylight. He like, I just need to see your face right now.
Yo, the smirk that the nigga had on his face was the most. The last time I seen that was when I was doing the shenanigans. It was evil. It was evil.
Call me cynical, but that doesn't sound like somebody who's concerned about their family's life or just looking to defend the weak and helpless. This is someone who is taking a lot of satisfaction in being able to attack somebody for the sake of his personal vendetta and career.
You know, but there's always a throne. There's always a crown in rap. That's how it started. Yeah. What you did, you'll be down. Rap. What's the greatest rapper life? What are you referring to? You like the greatest rapper life?
I got to. I didn't come on. I'm so passionate about hip hop, man. Like, I don't know where everybody else come from, but when I listen, man. Like, we play house party, bro, every night. Like, I love it to a point I can't even describe it, you know? And when I heard these artists say they're the best coming up, I said, I'm not doing it to have a good song or one good rap or a good hook or a good bridge. I want to keep doing it every time, period. And to do it every time, you have to challenge yourself and you have to confirm to yourself, not anybody else, confirm to yourself that you're the best, period. No one can take that away from me, period. And that's my drive, that's my hunger I will always have. And at this point right now, the years and the time and effort and the knowledge and the history, you know, I've done on culture and the game I've gotten from, you know, those before me and respect I have for them. I want to hold myself high on that same pedestal 10, 15 years from now.
That's where you were going when you were so blunt on control. You were like, I need to say this is what I mean.
Yeah, what we're doing.
In another interview talking about Control, he discusses that despite the positive lyrics in a lot of his music, he still views rap as a contact sport and has ultimately been inspired by the beefs that he saw between Nas and Jay-Z or Tupac and Biggie, so he doesn't want to shy away from that aspect. It's also evident by the fact that he takes rap so seriously and also views himself as the best that it would be frustrating for Drake to be more commercially successful, especially when you hear stories like this.
Adam Levine, fucking.
Well, you know why that is, right?
Why? Tell me.
They always wanted. TDE always wanted. They always wanted Kendrick to be like a Drake, like they. And this is an exclusive for you guys here now, like because you know how Drake got that. You know how on push-ups Drake said, "I know my picture's on the wall when y'all cook up."
Mm-hmm.
So this is the real reality of what that meant. So back in the day, and this is very, very good inside source told me this. Back in the day at the TDE studio, when they're like Kendrick was first coming up, they had a picture of Drake in the studio. Top did. Top had a picture of Drake in the studio, and people would ask, like, why do you guys have a picture of Drake in here? And Top would say, because this is the guy we're trying to beat. This is when I found that out, like, I know my picture on the wall when you'll cook up, like, that goes crazy, way harder because of that. But then it started adding up to me, like, oh, like the Taylor Swift records and the Adam Levine records and then like if Kendrick had any sort of animosity for Drake, it could have started back then. The label that you're signed to has got a picture of this kid that's the same age as you up on the wall who's killing it. This is the guy we're trying to beat, but you can't really beat him. At least not commercially. And I'm assuming if he's getting Kendrick to do these records, because I don't think Kendrick had any say in doing these records. Like, I don't think Kendrick probably wanted to do these records, but he was told, this is the move. We're doing this now. We need to do here. We need to go here.
So with all of that being said, and the personal vendetta he had against Drake because of Drake's response to Control, it makes sense that he would come after Drake in a battle.
Oh man,
and that's true. And that is true. That is from and that's not even coming from, I didn't even get that from a Drake side. I got that from a neutral party on both sides.
I'm gonna say this. I'm not revealing these sources.
Yeah.
But they're trusted. Just know that.
Yeah.
Just know that. Matt won't say it, and Matt can have plausible deniability. I'll say it. These just trusted sources he getting this shit from. All this information he told me, I knew. He told me about this shit months ago. I'm saying it. Matt, keep quiet. I got you on this one, bro.
I got you. I got you. Way more.
I got you. I know. Way more. I got you. Keep quiet. I seen screenshots. I seen screen recordings. These is trusted sources, my nigga.
Now that we understand a little bit better why Kendrick might have potentially had some resentment built up towards Drake beyond the Control verse, I want to also look at some misunderstandings that were made about the tracks with Kendrick and Drake going back and forth.
This management team to clean up the fact that you beat on your queen. The picture you painted ain't what it seemed. You did.
Drake seems to be referencing an incident that allegedly occurred at the Hard Rock Cafe in 2014, where it was rumored that Kendrick was involved in an altercation with a woman. Although Kendrick denied these allegations and the story eventually faded from public attention, Drake appears to highlight on this track that the woman involved was not just anyone, but that it was his queen, Whitney. Now, there's a video of a security guard who claims that Kendrick was indeed responsible for this incident.
Because, like, half of her face was, like, blown out, pretty much. She was with a certain rapper who had assaulted her. His first name was Kendrick. Kendrick Lamar? Yeah. There was cops there, and we didn't find out it was Kendrick until later.
And it's at this point where the Who Kid drop from Drake from Push-Ups starts to get a little more interesting. When we explore this further, the Who Kid drop wasn't just a reference to the Dave Free and Whitney allegations, but it pointed us right into the direction of when Kendrick performed in Las Vegas on May 3rd, 2014, with DJ Who Kid playing the very next day. Then we can't forget that Drake dropped his Family Matters record on May 3rd, so this was all extremely calculated. I can guarantee Kendrick did not want these allegations coming to light again. He picked up on that drop in Push-Ups right away, knew what it meant, and he acted accordingly.
Fabricate stories on the family front, cause you heard Mr. Morale.
It's called a safety net, right? That's what that is.
If you take it there, I'm taking it further.
Now, what we do know is that Kendrick did indeed make it to this performance. As you can see, this is when he first arrived at the event, and this is him with his friends at the rehab pool. He was slated to perform early that Saturday at 10 a.m. I also found a photo where he's in his hotel suite after the performance, and this photo was likely taken midday. Next, we also know that Kendrick didn't just hang back to chill at the suite that night, as we have photos of him at the pre-party for the Mayweather fight. As you can see, the date by Alamy is clearly listed as Las Vegas, May 3rd, 2014. Interestingly enough, the bodyguard also stated that this incident took place during Memorial Day weekend or at a fight.
It was Memorial Day or it was fight weekend, I don't remember.
However, another layer comes into play here, as we also have a photo of Kendrick with Whitney at this exact pre-party. As you can see, Alamy clearly tags this photo as being at a pre-party for a Mayweather fight on May 3rd. We also know that Kendrick made it to the fight that night, as I found a photo of him at the event. And that's when the fight took place. And this is likely when the incident would have took place. So when we look at the timeline I presented, we got to at least admit that the bodyguard's info aligns with it, right?
It was Memorial Day or it was fight weekend, I don't remember.
Also important to note, even if this incident did take place on Memorial Day weekend, it still wouldn't look much better for Kendrick because he also performed in Vegas during that time as well.
It was Memorial Day or it was fight.
Secondly, there is information from a news outlet called Media Takeout, which reported on the incident when it occurred. According to Media Takeout, both TDE and a crisis management firm contacted them demanding that the article be taken down, claiming that the story was entirely false. And as it stands right now today, this is all we got. Everything I just showed you guys.
Until now. But in all seriousness, before I get to the new information, I want to cover one other misconception about why Drake might have come out so hot on Push-Ups.
The precursor that fueled everything is the fact that Kendrick Lamar has an undeniable hatred towards Drake. And this was the ultimate setup for everything that he did. I believe both of these MCs knew at some point that they would one day clash, but I don't think Drake took it as serious because he didn't share that same hatred. Drake may have disliked Kendrick or was annoyed by him, but hate is a pretty strong word, and Kendrick definitely had this emotion with him.
Now let me say I'm the biggest hater.
I don't believe for 1 second that 2024 was the first time Kendrick picked up a pen with the intention of going at Drake. I'm convinced he started crafting verses as far back as 2013. Taking notes, studying Drake's every move, every misstep, every rumor, and he carefully analyzed all the battles that Drake was already in. I was told by an inside source that Kendrick had a diss track for Drake back in 2021 with most of the same subject matter. So without this element of hate,
instead of the entire industry, he wanted to diss Drake. And he recorded a Drake diss that he was going to drop in 2021 to gear up excitement for the album. Now, when he was playing people this record, people have heard this record. It's not a secret. It's a record that's absolutely confirmed 100% this record exists. In that record, he was calling Drake like similar things that he called Drake, in their latter beef. He was calling him a pedo, etc., etc. He's sick, he vile. So Kendrick Lamar was going personal. And a lot of people felt this was too much. Yo, folks like, bro, what did Drake do to you?
Now we understand why Drake came out with the warning shot about revealing Kendrick's potential domestic abuse situation with Whitney. It wasn't a personal attack on his family meant to expose Whitney's infidelity. He was warning Kendrick, if you go there, meaning the PDF theories, I'm going to expose you for the domestic abuse allegations. And like What's the Dirt said, Kendrick picked up on this when he said, if you take it there, I'm taking it further. That's something you don't want to do. Flipping the warning on Drake. And as Kanye, Pusha T, and Joe Budden have all confirmed, Drake is good at insulting you in a subtle way that the audience is unaware of, and that's what happened here. Before you try to discredit this by attacking the sources, we can hear it from Drake directly in the original version of Push-Ups.
Everything I know, don't wake a demon up. This ain't even everything I know, don't wake a demon up. You had a song for 4 years, drop that shit or shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, nigga. It's me twice in my big three, I had to leave you out.
Alright, so now we've answered what really started it, what was really going on before and during the beef with their subliminal shots, but why couldn't it be avoided? Because as Kendrick essentially admitted himself, Drake attempted to squash things and recruit Kendrick to join he and J. Cole on first-person shooter mode, and I think that's the most unanswered question in general nearly a year later. The most wishful thinking of Kendrick fans that deify him will say Kendrick knew Drake was a fake and he saw through him and blah blah blah. But let's look at him like a human instead. Because as we noted, Kendrick was obsessed with the crown as he told Zane Lowe. Many would probably say that doesn't require sales, and I don't necessarily disagree. Like, if it was the year Flo Rida had all those smash hits, no one was saying, wow, Flo Rida is the king of rap right now. But despite people's assumption that Kendrick doesn't care about numbers, he seemed to reveal otherwise on Genius.com. For his song Cartoons and Cereal, and an annotation about the line saying, not to worry, every warrior will come and see euphoria, and that's a covenant I put on every tribe. He responded and said, yeah, that's the bar. I'm trying to figure out where I was at. I think I was just at a point where it felt like everybody needed to believe in me. This kid from Compton, believe in me. Because I'm going to do something that is going to spark the idea of some type of hope going back to that. Whether it is in music or whether it is in life, you feel me? And yeah, I look at it as a battle within itself, and a battle within myself, to always stay focused and remain focused on what I came for. And that is to move people with music. And I feel like music can shape the world at any time. I've got people out that said they almost committed suicide until they put in overly dedicated, until they put in Section 80. So when I made Cartoons and Cereal, I said that specific line, continue to believe in me and believe in what I'm doing, because I won't fail you. So now that we know Drake did have something Kendrick wanted, because that does sound like somebody who cares about audience recognition and support, I think we have to investigate the possibility the lack of forgiveness had more to do with jealousy than it resulted from Kendrick thinking Drake is too despicable of a person to forgive, especially since his own label was putting Drake up on a pedestal above him and hoping to turn him into the Drake of their label. A couple of useful theories relate to the saying crabs in a bucket, which is a metaphor describing a situation where people within a group actively try to pull others down or prevent them from succeeding, especially when someone starts to achieve something beyond the group, essentially saying, if I can't have it, neither can you, even if tearing them down doesn't give you anything. Obviously, this stems from envy, but also from a desire to discredit the person who has achieved more than you. And when you look at Kendrick and Drake through this lens, it all makes more sense. According to the self-evaluation maintenance theory, individuals evaluate their value and worth not just through introspection, but also with comparison to peers. So it makes sense Kendrick would compare himself to the other biggest rapper of his generation. When someone close to an individual excels in areas they value, and like we said, Kendrick clearly valued audience support, they may feel threatened and act in ways that downplay their achievements. And obviously that's pretty fitting based on Kendrick's attacks on Drake. He couldn't even grant him the title of rapper. He had to compare him to a scam artist. He said Tupac would be turning in his grave over Drake having his ring. He clowned him for acting tough, only giving him credit for his melodies. He said Drake never gave the audience anything to believe in. He refers to him as an actor and calls him by his legal first name instead of his rap name. It's constant belittling of someone he was a fan of once upon a time. Even saying in one interview he was inspired to up the quality of his mixtapes based on how good So Far Gone was. Which tells me that this discrediting of Drake isn't a genuine expression. It's just an act of jealous rage or an attempt to discredit him to the audience, when in reality he's always respected Drake.
Yo, that's Drake. Period. Any man that disagree, you need to go back and do your history, do your math on it, because once he went out there and did them numbers on all original music and still called it a mixtape, and it went gold, if I'm not mistaken, what that did was grab attention from all independent artists and letting us know, yo, you have to compete on another level now. It's not just about you grabbing somebody's industry beat and doing freestyles over it. You really want to show and prove, show us that you can make an actual song with some dope lyrics, a dope beat, a chorus, and maybe a bridge. You know what I'm saying? That's what Drake did. So it's a whole nother ballpark, man, and people's been real receptive to it. That's why a lot of artists is doing it, like myself.
On top of that, the Wikipedia page says crab mentality can be viewed as a response to perceived social inequality, where pulling others down becomes a strategy to cope with the feelings of inadequacy or injustice. Studies also show that people are more likely to feel jealous of others when they feel they could have achieved the same things that the person did if they had their circumstances. And what did Kendrick accuse Drake of? Having an easy life/circumstances. We've also seen how Kendrick felt being black held him back, so even though Drake is half black, there is a light-skin privilege, or at the very least a perception of that. Add in the fact that he had Kendrick's idol, Lil Wayne, as his label boss, and it may sound silly to some, but Drake had the more traditional good looks and height. There's a lot of things that someone could be jealous of. And obviously a lot of reasons Kendrick may have felt that Drake had an unfair advantage or an easier road to the crown. It doesn't necessarily mean Kendrick's jealous of Drake's skill set or thinks he's inferior at the end of the day. I'm not really suggesting that or think that's true in his opinion, but he will obviously want to outshine Drake, and as a competitive rapper, he was unable to do that. Drake had something Kendrick valued, and the gap was so wide that it was worth him pulling Drake down. And as Kendrick said himself, I'll take them to hell with me. Showing it wasn't just an attempt to get the crown, it was also about having the opportunity to damage Drake's legacy and, by extension, provide a coping mechanism for himself to justify his inferior sales and still feel like he got a win. Because as Drake said, he's not sneaking up anymore. It also probably felt like retribution to take out the privileged Drake.
There's certain things too now. There was a shocking story about you, and I was like, there's no way this is true.
Yeah.
When they said you were in Vegas and you beat some guy bloody and you did something to some female.
Yeah.
And they said they had evidence and all of this, and then I never heard anything about it again.
Yeah, because it's foolishness.
Mhm.
That's the most ignorant stuff I've ever heard made up.
I was like, Kendrick did that? I doubt it.
And, that person, whoever made that up, owes an apology. Not to me, but to women that actually go out there and get abused. You dig what I'm saying? That's a real issue, and to be putting a person name that stands for someone way more better, that's been raised way more better than that. That's not cool. It's people out there that really get abused, and there's women out there that get abused and don't say nothing, and live their lives through that. So that's.
Because I was like, I'm sure if that happened, there'd have been a police report. You would have been arrested.
That's foolishness. That's ignorant. That's all the way ignorant to 100%.
When you hear things in the news, certain things I believe about artists. That story, I didn't even think that was remotely close to your character at all.
Yeah, you be in jail, man. They put you under the jail. You can't run from that. Money can't buy that.
Are you experiencing?
I've always had an odd fascination with learning the science of body language, and so I actually rewatched this interview and happened to notice a couple things I'd learned over the years that looked like tells for Kendrick lying in this interview that I want to educate everybody on.